Hello and good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Veeam webinar this morning. So we have Mike Resler here from Veeam, and we also have Sir John Wilkins from Bytes.
Morning all. As you can see, Bytes are a gold partner with Veeam, and we view Veeam as essential to our virtualization customers and an essential part of what we offer to them. Management Pack version 7 for System Center has got lots of new features which Mike is going to cover off in the presentation. If after you've watched the webinar, if you want to contact your Bytes account manager, there is a free trial period Veeam offer which is currently on, and they can go through the details of that with you. Any questions, obviously, please put them in the question part at the end. I'll hand you over to Mike.
All right, good morning all, and thank you for joining me in this webinar on Veeam Management Pack version 7 for System Center, which we released 2 weeks ago. My name is Mike Resler. I am a Veeam product strategist working a lot on the Microsoft technologies like HyperV, System Center, and of course our own products as well. Today I'm going to try not to show you too many slides, unless of course Murphy is kicking in, destroying the access to my demo lab. I'm going to try to demonstrate everything live. However, after this webinar, when the nice people of Bytes make everything available, you will be able to download slides, and it will include a lot of PowerPoint slides with screenshots of the things you're going to see. But as I said, I'm going to try to do everything live here to make sure that you see it in action. And with that said, let's not wait too long anymore, and let's just start with the presentation. If you didn't hear about it yet, System Center is a very large framework existing out of different components offered by Microsoft that not can only manage and monitor Microsoft products, but can manage and monitor third-party applications as well. We're talking about VMware in our case, but also about specific databases where there are third-party vendors that offer management packs for it. We're talking about automation with System Center Orchestrator that you can use to manage a whole stack of third-party applications out of the box, including of course the possibility to use native PowerShell to manage whatever you want. And what we did here with version 7 is build a management pack specifically to manage and monitor HyperV, vSphere, and V backup and replication, our major data protection product. So what we did is we wanted to make sure that you have critical visibility and protection of those components. And let us quickly look to something which we call the application to the metal, and which is probably one of the biggest challenges in any data center where you're doing monitoring and management. So one of the things is that today it's rather easy, certainly with System Center Operations Manager, to monitor and manage applications and operating systems. You just use a native Microsoft System Center framework, and you import quite a lot of these management packs that are specifically written for applications such as SQL, Exchange, or as I said, through third-party vendors for Oracle or MySQL or something like that. However, it becomes quite more difficult when you're going to add a few more layers within your data center, something which is lately much more common and will become more common in the next couple of years. So when we talk about adding virtual machines, a virtualization layer like HyperV or vSphere, and of course the metal itself, which is the hardware, meaning CPU and memory on the compute side, but also the storage and the network, then it becomes much more difficult. Now we already offer great protection through Veeam backup and replication here to make sure that you're not only protecting the virtual machines, but the OS inside and the applications as well. But managing it through that System Center suite to have that one single view, and I'll show you how it looks like in the demos, is a little bit more difficult to do. Now if you combine the Veeam Management Pack together with Microsoft System Center Operations Manager or Service Manager as well, but I'll come back to that one later, you'll be able to manage that entire stack from a single view, from a single console, and even later on you will see that the root cause analysis will become much more easier. Now, when we designed this management pack, starting from a few versions ago, we kept a few key IT challenges in our head, and we really worked around those challenges to make sure that we can solve them into any data center or infrastructure that we get installed to. Now, when we talk to our customers, we kind of define 3 different personas in every large data center. But even in the small data center, we see those different roles, although sometimes we see that, for example, one person can be the operations team, but also be the virtualization professional. In the large enterprises, of course, sometimes these roles get split up in multiple teams, but the important thing is that we all have those same challenges. We're talking about when you work in the operations teams, it's rather difficult to see everything, the app to matter, which has just showed you. But also the challenges on our data centers have changed lately a lot. We're talking about 24/7 uptime that we need to maintain. It's not enough anymore to just be online during business hours. People demand from us that our email, our files, our SharePoint, or whatever tools you're using can be accessed 24/7 from wherever location and from whatever device. So we need to keep that in mind. There's also a lot of capacity changes. If you think about it, it used to be rather difficult to deploy a new service, or it took a lot of time because you needed to order hardware, you need to get that hardware in, rack it, install the operating system, and so on and so on. Today, with virtualization, when they ask for a new virtual machine, you just deploy a new virtual machine, and a couple of hours later you can start deploying the specific application. However, that means you need to have that capacity on your virtualization layer. How are you going to see it? What do I have left? Do I need to order more capacity to maintain the next couple of months of making sure that I can deploy new services? All of these questions, all of these things that you need to take into account can be solved by using that management pack. We're also looking more at monitoring and firefighting. We still see a lot of businesses where the virtualization professionals, certainly if it's a separate team, that they're also responsible for monitoring the virtual environment and solving issues when they arise. Now that's not a good thing because we got an operations team in those businesses and it's their duty to do the monitoring. Now what if they can actually do the monitoring? I'm not saying they will be able to solve it because you need real virtualization professionals in those large environments that work on it on a daily basis, but what if they can monitor it and they can make sure that whenever happens something, they pass through that problem, including already some troubleshooting information, so that those virtualization professionals can solve it quickly and lose less time so that they have the time to do what they need to do, make sure that their virtualization environment is maintained, upgraded, kept up to date, and those kind of things. And we thought about the IT management as well. When we talk with customers that already have System Center in place, they talk about the huge investment they did, not only on purchasing the licenses, because that's one thing and that's rather cheap compared to other solutions, but they're also talking about the fact that they implemented workflows, that they have ITIL implemented, that they have all kinds of procedures that they do specifically with that suite. And that works very well for them, and it's good return on investment. But what if you have a certain virtualization layer, for example, VMware here, and you need to implement a new different solution where you have to build new workflows on, have to build new reporting, those kind of things. In that case, the return on investment becomes much lower, and you need to spend more money to have the same thing. By using our management pack, you will all bring it to that specific tool that you're already using for your Microsoft environments anyway, and you can maintain the same workflows, the same ITIL procedures, and so on, and save money on that as well. But also very important for IT management is that IT professionals won't come to them with, I have a feeling that we need more resources because we're going to run out of it. Because the first question management asks at that moment is, can you actually prove it? Can you give me the numbers that shows that we're running out of resources? In that case, IT professionals will need 1, 2, maybe 3 days to provide with all the numbers, to put an Excel sheet and so on. Using our management pack, we'll give you those numbers with a single click, run a report, and that's it. So great value for them as well that they have those right numbers, and that IT professionals don't need to spend too much time in providing those numbers. So what's new in V7 compared to 6.5 for those who actually already know our management pack? So I already kind of said it, but we're supporting Microsoft Hyper-V now, besides vSphere as well, and we try to be on par with the capabilities we have for vSphere. Now there are a few small differences, which is logical since they're two different hypervisors, but for 95% all of the capabilities you have in Hyper-V monitoring and management you will have in vSphere as well. And again, there are small differences, but we'll talk about that when I do the demos. We built quite some unique new dashboards. One of the things we focused very hard on this version is to make sure that proactive monitoring really can become a thing within your business. And by simple workflows, for example, looking at some views on a daily basis through in-context dashboards, real-time dashboards, heat maps, traffic light widgets, and again, you're going to see those in a couple of minutes, you will be able to do that proactive monitoring and see that there are potential problems already before they actually happen. And I think that's great value for any business. We already had the visibility of VMware backups in version 6.5. Now that we add support for Hyper-V, it's only logical that we have that visibility for the Hyper-V backups as well. So now you're not only having support for everything on Hyper-V and VMware, but we made sure that everything within Veeam Backup per application is monitored and managed as well. And last but not least, and completely new, is actually the hybrid cloud capacity planning. And this is an analysis of your environment that runs in your own data center, and then it will give you the recommendations to run on a hybrid cloud. We're looking at Azure, Microsoft Azure hybrid cloud, but we're also looking at the VMware hybrid cloud, and it will recommend you what kind of resources you will need to run that environment, and then of course you can do a cost calculation. I'll show you that as well. Last thing you need to know before we actually jump into demos is there are some new product additions as well. We do listen very well to our customers, and a few of our customers, well quite a few actually, asked us to split it up in some different product additions. Now we are announcing now a new edition called the Enterprise Edition, and that will give you tactical day-to-day monitoring and operations, and I'll come back to the features in the next slide. And the other edition we have is the Enterprise Plus. Now for those of you who are already wondering or starting typing questions in the Q&A, if you are today already a Veeam Management Pack customer and you're still under maintenance, when you upgrade, you will upgrade to Enterprise Plus because that is the license you have today. New customers will be able to choose between the two, and of course if you're an old customer and you want to talk again to downgrade or something, you can always contact a Veeam sales representative or one of our partners such as Bytes that will be able to answer those questions for you. Now let's look quickly at the different features of this of those two editions. Well, actually I was lying a bit, we have 3 editions. Why? Because we still have our free version for Veeam Backup. That means if you download the trial from our website, you install it, you will get 30 days the Enterprise Plus edition. After those 30 days, everything which is in the Enterprise edition additionally and the Plus edition additionally will be disabled, but you will maintain everything for the Veeam Backup management. So if you're already running Veeam Backup or application, in that case with the free edition you could just have some topology views of your infrastructure, see the alerts, events and so on your backups and your components within our suite, and you will get the System Center report templates as well to build your reports. Now if you're going to choose for the Enterprise Edition, you get Hyper-V and VMware with that, and you will get real-time view of the host and the virtual machine performance and some advanced dashboards. But if you need much more and you really want to start with that capacity planning, the modeling, right sizing of your infrastructure and so on, in that case you're going to look at the Enterprise Plus edition. With that said, and let's hope that Murphy is working together with us, let's jump into our demo, and with a bit of luck you should be able to see my demo environment as we speak. All right, As I said, we're looking at some key IT challenges, and we try to solve them with lots of views, with lots of good information. So let's give a very, very brief overview of what we have here. Unfortunately, I only have like 25 minutes left, actually less, to demonstrate all of the features. I can actually do that. I can probably annoy you for 2 hours with that, but I'll show you the great features we have in this demo. So let's start with this visibility first. And one of the things is that we have these topology views. Now again, everything I'm going to show you will be able to do both on HyperV as on VMware. The only things that are different, I will actually tell you when it's only VMware or HyperV. And this is one of these topology views we have. And we split those topology views up in compute, in storage, and network. Now this is the compute, meaning we are looking at it from the server side. And in my environment here, I've got 2 HyperV clusters, one which is a standalone cluster, which is my development cluster, and the other one is actually connected to a virtual machine manager. Now when I open that, you will see that I have 2 hosts in my production cluster. And when I open one of these hosts, I will be able to see more information. I've got here some information on my storage. You will see that I've got actually 2 cluster disks on it. Got some information on my networking. And of course, I've got some information on my virtualization layer. That is to say, which virtual machines are running here. Now, if you're live migrating, storage migrating, or whatever you need to do, don't worry about it. These views get populated dynamically, so they will be updated. But what we did here as well is work with correlation. Now, this is all coming from the Veeam Management Pack. However, you do want to see now more, and you do want to see the operating system and the application running on this specific virtual machine, because then it becomes really interesting to find the root cause much faster. So we correlate with the existing management packs within your environment, and we look on what is installed on that virtual machine. This is, of course, if you have a System Center Operations Manager agent installed in the operating system and you have deployed the specific management packs for that. Now, if I do click further, I will see that this is a specific Windows Server machine, and if I click on this, you will actually be able to see what kind of services are running. So from the hardware to the virtualization layer to the virtual machine, and finally the operating system, and then the applications, and you can see it here. I'm looking at the C drive, which seems to be running out of something. I've got my OS, but I also got specific services running in this virtual machine. I can browse through that entire stack without any issues. Now, I already said this is on compute. We have those on networking as well, and I can show you here, for example, that I have my cluster networks here within that environment, and I can browse through. I can look further, and again, I'm seeing the information on my physical network, but I also see the information on my virtual switch. And always, you can look at one of these icons. You can say instance properties and get the amount of information that you need. What's the name of this virtual switch, what kind of adapter it's been using, where it's connected to, what the duplex speed is, and so on and so on. So all that information you get. And again, you're going to see this specific virtual switch has 4 virtual machines on it. And again, we're going to go very simply, browse through, go to the operating system, go to the applications. So whatever happens to your virtual switch, if you lose one or whatever the reason is, you can now quickly see in Operations Manager which services or which virtual machines are impacted. That of course means that if something goes wrong, your help desk or your service desk or whatever you want to call can inform the right people very quickly. When we look at compute, when we look at network, of course we have to look at storage as well. And again, we're going to do it here and maybe just jump back to my production server here, cluster I mean, and I've got my cluster disk here, and you will see that on this specific disk, I've got again a few virtual machines running, and I can browse through. And as I already said, just go simply to instance properties and you will get all the information you need. It's a cluster storage, it's got a volume name, got my total storage capacity, It's a demo environment, even though I call it my production, but still. And I've got a file system type as well. Now this, of course, were 3 views on HyperV, but just to quickly show you that I'm not fooling you, this is the same one on compute but for VMware, and I've got my data center here, I've got my development cluster running on VMware, I've got 5 hosts here, and we can just, like everywhere else, continue to browse, look at some hardware, for example, look at some specific sensors and so on, looking at how the health of your RAM modules are and so on, looking if somebody has placed it in maintenance mode, and finally see again what kind of virtual machines are running on that specific host. So quite a lot of information you get out of these views, and if there's something wrong, you can quickly troubleshoot where the problem is. Now we go much further with these views, and one of the things we introduce is heat maps. Now we kind of already had heat maps in our previous versions, but they were more report based. Now we really offer those live in the views in the monitoring section, and this is a great example of what you can use for proactive monitoring. Because if you look at this view, for example, once a day, maybe once a week, depending on your environment, you might be able to see what is happening. And this is a heat map view of my VMware hosts in this case. And we can see the CPU availability and the CPU used based tile color. And as long as it's green, that means it's okay. And the tile size is how many gigahertz you're actually using. And then we have the same thing for memory, and you can see green is okay. A little bit lighter green means we're already increasing the use of our memory, and even here we're using almost 70%, which means the color starts to go to yellow. Now if it of course becomes yellow, that means we're starting to using too much memory, and you can do some troubleshooting why this is happening, and from the moment this tile becomes red, it might be that you have a serious issue. Now the cool thing about this heat maps is that you can at a single glance now look at it, how's my environment performing, but imagine one of your monitoring guys or girls looks at this and say, hey, this starts to look yellow, maybe I should quickly look. He or she can just right click, go to navigation, and then say, for example, let's see, host memory usage analysis, and you can see we have quite a lot of dashboards that you can use to do an analysis, but in this case I want to see the memory, and automatically we'll jump into a specific dashboard, and this is where the correlation comes in again. Not only it will look at the memory based on the host, and you can see it's fluctuating here a bit, but we also then look at all of the different virtual machines that are running on that host and how they are using their memory, and more importantly, we're actually looking at all the alerts specifically for that host, but also for the virtual machines. Now I will show you a couple of more better examples actually, because these are all alerts coming from our management pack. But imagine that you have an alert from another management pack from, for example, the operating system or the SQL server running on that virtual machine which is using too much memory. You will see those as well. So in a single dashboard, we're not only showing our alerts and our performance counters and so on, we correlate again with those different management packs, and we make sure that you have everything in a single simple view so you can continue your troubleshooting. Alright, let's look at some other of these great examples, and for example, this one is a specific one for HyperV. This is a heat map on the CPU and memory for HyperV, and you can see again the colors here. Well, here again we've got some great dashboards that you can drill through. Now if I right click on this one and I'm going to go to navigation, I can, for example, open my host compute analysis dashboard, where I get again the last 24 hours, my top virtual machines in computing, what the last 4 hours, and I'll explain these specific traffic light widgets a little bit later. But again, I get other heat maps as well now on the virtual machine level, and we'll come back to those in a couple of minutes, because now I open a drill through dashboard, but now I see I've got some red on the virtual machine level, and what an operator can do now is very easily right click, go to navigation and go, for example, into a deeper analysis and go now specifically on the virtual machine level, where we get the dynamic memory metrics, the pressure, the visible versus the physical, and what is used in the guest. And this is of course not coming from our management pack, but comes from a default Microsoft management pack. But we wanted to make sure that it's in a single dashboard. And as you can see here now, with all the alerts, they're not only showing the Veeam alerts, which is this one, but we also have a specific Windows Server alert that we correlate and put into this dashboard, and another one specifically on the disk level as well. Single view, single glance, and now you can quickly start troubleshooting this as well. Now this one was one of our dashboards, but we can do other things as well, and this one is rather unique for HyperV. It doesn't exist in VMware, because when you go to navigation, you can start now the Veeam Task Manager for HyperV. And the reason why this is unique is because there is a problem with Task Manager when you're running it on a HyperV host. When you RDP into a HyperV host and you open Task Manager, which is of course a tool that every administrator out there likes to use, but if you do it on a Hyper-V host, you only see the metrics for the parent partition and not what the virtual machines are consuming. So what we did is make sure that in real time, because this is real-time information, this does not come out of the data warehouse or whatever, this is real-time directly gathered from the host, and we wanted to make sure that you see what the host is using and what the different virtual machines are actually using on that hypervisor. As you can see, we're kind of in our environment cheating a bit with some standardized virtual machines, but I think it's clear that with this view, any administrator can quickly see which virtual machine is running away with all the memory of all the CPU, so you can troubleshoot that rather quickly, something you can't do with the default task manager on a Hyper-V host today. Okay. Now we got some more cool stuff coming up. Maybe this one is also nice, because we're not only showing you heat maps on compute, we have those on storage as well. And this is just one example, because we got quite some heat maps on storage, but this will show you the storage space used, and that's a tile size of course, and the checkpoint size. Now those of you who work with virtualization environments for a longer period, they know that a snapshot, or as Microsoft calls them now, a checkpoint, can become very, very dangerous if you leave that checkpoint running or that snapshot running in VMware, and you need to consolidate it afterwards. Now with this single view, you can see very quickly that everything is green here, but this one actually has an issue because it's in red, and now I can quickly look at my navigation again, go to my storage space analysis dashboard and see what the space I've been using, what my checkpoint size is, but more importantly what my checkpoint age is, which is becoming way too long now, so I really need to do something about this virtual machine. And again, we have that correlation of the different alerts for that specific virtual machine. Alright, this is just simply proactive monitoring which we're talking about, and that all views that you can use on a daily basis just to quickly look what your environment is doing and solve potential issues before they are actually happening. But of course, System Center Operations Manager is meant for monitoring as well, and to catch alerts when they happen, or events or warnings or whatever. Now, besides just catching problems, we created almost every monitor that we have with what we call real-time analytics monitors. And it's some knowledge that we built in to make sure the moment something happens, you immediately get some more information. So let me quickly open one of these, and for example this one, the memory pressure analysis. And what we do is, besides giving you the alert, and with a bit of luck, here we go, you can actually grow it, you can see it better. So what we do now is not only show you the information which virtual machine is actually reporting it, on which host we're talking about, what the value is of the alarm, and 150% of high memory pressure is not that good, but at that time what we do is do some queries to the host and the virtual machine to see what is actually wrong and to give you that troubleshooting information already without you needing to do it. And then we put that into the alert description as well. So what we see is that this virtual machine is using 0.06% of the allocated limit. So it's using today 678 megabytes, while it actually has a limit of quite a lot more. Now, of course, again, this is kind of a demo environment to play with and to show you some alarms, so this is a very, very bad setup, certainly not according to the best practices, but you can see that we show you everything and where the problem is. Now, we continue to do that, and then we start giving you some troubleshooting information. Now, what you can see here is that, again, sorry, wrong button, this one, not working, that we're actually looking at the host and saying, hey, do we still have that memory available? But it tells us we're out of memory available for the dynamic memory balancer and so on. So moving this VM to an host with more memory as a solution, or migrating or powering off. So we present you with all that information immediately. Now imagine that this is an operational professionals. They cannot solve this because it needs to go to the second tier or even the third tier within the environment. He can copy paste his information and automatically send that into the ticket and get that ticket to a different tier, escalate it to a different tier, and those tiers don't need to do the troubleshooting anymore. They get the information immediately in the tickets. And besides that, don't forget, of course, that we always provide you with that intensive product knowledge as well. We tell you what the specific monitor is and what it means, what possible causes are, resolutions, but, and that is also very important, that we're not only having a dedicated help center specifically for everything within our management pack, but that we will refer to the Microsoft Online documentation as well to make sure that you can catch up on specific settings or read more about this specific topic. So great alert rules we have here that can save you a lot of time in the troubleshooting to resolve, you know, your problems faster and to get those SLAs that you agreed upon. All right, let's continue a little bit more. I need to think about the time, of course, and let's look at those specific top dashboards. And a top dashboard, as you can see here, is also color-coded, and this is our own code that doesn't exist in other management packs for System Center. But what we did is make sure that if you look at these dashboards that you have, again, in a single glance, and as you can see that right here, that we're looking at a red value, which means we need to solve this. And as always, right-click on it, go to navigation, go to host compute analysis, but I already demonstrated, and drill through to find that our virtual machines are actually having an issue and that you can solve those as fast as possible. Some other examples we have, of course, is the one for the virtual machines. And you can see here very clearly what is happening on memory pressure. But something I haven't told you yet is that you can actually customize yourself these specific widgets. So what I can do, for example, is go to personalize and say, well, you know, I don't want a yellow or a warning starting from 80%. I actually only want it when it's 90%, and critical 100% is fine. And if I finish, you will see it automatically adapts. That doesn't mean we're changing the monitors or the rules or the events or whatever, but we do change the views specifically for you so that you can decide within your dashboards what's the most important for your environment before you actually start troubleshooting or solving potential issues. And again, of course, drilling through, as I've stated already, more. Now we went further and we looked at capacity planning as well. Those who know our management pack from before, they know we have specific reports for capacity planning, and we still have those, and I'll show you those as well. But now, both on the HyperV as on the VMware side, we'll give you this in a widget as well. So imagine you come in on a Monday morning, drink your coffee, open the Operations Manager console or the Outlook for IT administrators, as we like to call it, and you see that there are two clusters, and one of them is actually in really bad shape for the memory. Then in that case, you can quickly start troubleshooting and call your peers and say you're running out of resources. and everything is, as always, you can personalize this as well. As you can see, my production cluster actually doesn't have memory anymore left, so I would not be able to deploy anything else. Plus, as you have seen of those virtual machines, the memory pressure is rather high. And on my development cluster, it looks like within 6 days I will be in the same situation. On the CPU level, we're rather good today. And again, not only on compute, we have those on storage as well. And here you can see that most of my storage I'm running in this environment has no issues with free space. However, my first disk seems to be having some issues, and we predict that within 41 days we'll probably running out of storage, which means this could be a great way to or a great moment to migrate some virtual machines from disk 1 to disk 2, who still has a lot of capabilities or capacity left. And now that we have done that, oh yeah, let me show you just one last thing here on the VMware side again, because I showed you quite some dashboards or some traffic lights on the HyperV side, but just to show you that we have those on VMware as well, and specifically on the data stores and the different parameters that we're looking at. And for example, the maximum latency here, which could be very important in a virtual environment. Right-click on it, go to navigation, and then just jump to the data store latency analysis. And as you can see, we have provisioning analysis, space analysis, and so on. But let's go to latency analysis, and you will get those specific information that you need for VMware. And again, we got it on the full data store per virtual machine that's running on that data store, and of course the alerts specifically for those items. Now let's dive a bit into the reporting and make sure that you can do capacity, you can do modeling, you can do prediction, and so on. So if we're going to look at a few of these reports, now one of the things is that performance forecasting, the one you just saw into the views, but we want to get some more information. So imagine you do see that you have some issues within 41 days or 7 days or whatever. Now you can dive into it and look at specific numbers. Now every report you need to know is that you can actually customize all of these different parameters. Now in my case, and the default as well, I want to make sure that every host has a threshold of 90%, including the CPU and the memory, to pick up the spikes. However, this could be different in your environment, so that's something you have to decide on. And then we select our environments, and then we get, like in almost every report, first we get what our virtual infrastructure is, my total amount of hosts, my total amount of CPU cores, and so on. And then we start by looking in specific numbers. Now the first thing you get is actually the recommendations. So I failed on my production cluster for the memory. I did pass it on the development, although I'm running out. And then we go deep dive into the numbers. And this, for example, is the graph that we look at for the CPU for the next couple of days. And as you can see, we're doing very well. We're not even close to the threshold, and we got, in worst case, 408 days left, in best case 439 days. So on the CPU side, we're cool. However, if we're going to look at the memory side, then you can see here that we're slowly growing, because the blue line is the actual value line. And if we're going to look at the trend and the deviation, we see that in probably worst case today, but best case in 40 days, we're going to hit that specific threshold line. Now again, for all of these reports you can do drill through as well, which means you can now even go further and look at specific data. Some more stuff we have is then host failure modeling, because besides on the compute capacity planning, and we have that on storage as well, of course, but now you can start do host failure modeling and saying, well, what if one of my hosts dies, or you put a host into maintenance mode. And again, you get your virtual infrastructure. You see that we fail, so whatever host in my clusters are dying, I've got an issue and I can't run all of my virtual machines anymore, so I'll need to make some decisions. Sorry about that. And then you can see what I do remove, how many gigahertz I remove, how many gigabyte of memory I remove, and then it will give you some more information about that as well. And with this data, you can step to your peers and you can say, look, if we lose a host, whatever the reason is, if it's maintenance or actually something that dies, the hardware, we can't run anything, every virtual machine anymore, so we're going to need to make a decision which virtual machines are more important than other ones, or you might, give me some more resources, some more hosts, so I can make sure if something happens, I still can run my entire environment. So this is great information that you can talk to, that you can use on meetings, and that you can do your planning with based on the real information. And again, with the parameters, you choose what kind of information you take. So by default it will be from today minus 30 days what we look, and then the forecast we do plus 30 days, but you might want to change that as well to have longer plannings or budget meetings or something like that. Alright, other things we do is a what if, or we call it a what if virtual machine deployment, and I already talked about it. What if we're going to deploy some more VMs, it becomes easy, boom, here we go, right? So if we just simply now go to the parameters again, you're going to model your specific virtual machine. Now there can be one virtual machine or can be a service existing out of 3 virtual machines. And we actually have that report as well, where you're not basing it on a model of yourself, but you're basing it on a service or a virtual machine that's already running on your cluster. So you got the real performance data there. And then when you run the report, what you get is a full description of how many of these virtual machines you can run. Now you saw my environment, you know I don't have any place left certainly on the memory, but it will tell you, depending for example on the different disks, I can still deploy 1 because I have enough IOPS for 1 additional. If I look at use storage, at the space itself, you can see I've got some issues on 2 of my disks. I've got a Drobo with a lot of space left, so that's not an issue. And then we deep dive into completely different data. So you can actually see where you have resource issues instead of guessing whether you can deploy it or not. And if you know what kind of resources you're missing, you might be able to upgrade that server with more resources or something like that. Alright, let's see another thing, and I promise you this one, the capacity planning report. I told you we have this for the VMware Hybrid Cloud as well. Let me just show you this for the Azure Hybrid Cloud. So what I did in my parameters is not only took my HyperV virtual machines, but I also took my VMware virtual machines and made sure that I analyze it, and then I wanted to see what do I need to configure on Azure to be able to run those. So I took a performance report over 30 days, and then it will tell me if I want to run my entire virtual infrastructure into Azure Cloud, then I need 20 extra smalls, 3 smalls, 5 medium, 7 large to be able to do that. Now that's great information, because now based on your pricing on a monthly basis, you could start calculating how much money you will need to run it on Azure. And as I said, I took my entire infrastructure, but imagine that you just want to put 3 specific web servers in Azure IaaS, then you can only choose those 3 web servers, and it will tell you which of these hosting options it needs, and then you can click on this and you can deep dive specifically now into each virtual machine and see why it needs those resources, what is happening there, and so on. As you can see, lots of graphs additionally that you have on the specific subject to see what you need in Azure for the future. All right, some more idle virtual machines, very important. We call them zombie virtual machines actually. What does it mean? Virtual machines that are still running in your infrastructure, but actually nobody is using them, or they're not doing anything. So what we do over a certain amount of time, you choose that period of course, we're looking at the different virtual machines and we see whether they're being used or not based on this graph, and then we get detailed information about all of them. So we got CPU, we got memory, we've got disk usage, storage consumption, network usage, and so on. We give you where we're wasting a lot of things, and then we actually show you the specific numbers. So now you can go to your peers or to the virtual machine owner and say, look, we analyzed your specific virtual machine, we see what it's using, in a maximum, both on memory, CPU, disk, and so on, and we believe that you're actually not using it anymore. So can we turn off the virtual machine? Can we delete it? Do we need to archive it? Or are you still needing that specific virtual machine? So great stuff, so you can right size your environment better. And we have more on those. Now we can actually right size our virtual machines as well. Same principle, only now we're going to see how much resources you can take away from a virtual machine. So quickly, if we're going to look at it, for example, this HV MP3, this is what memory it's been consuming. We see what the average is, we see what the maximum is. We saw that we gave it 8 gigabytes. We recommend to give it 1.41 so you can reclaim this amount of resources for other virtual machine. And again, we're doing this on memory, we're doing this on compute as well, and it doesn't matter whether it's HyperV or VMware. What else do we've got left? We've got some great storage performance profile analysis as well, and this we're very proud of because we work with lots of storage experts together to get this report. But this is actually where we're going to look at the latency at the IOPS on the different storage you have, both on VMware HyperV, and we're going to give you detailed information about this. For example, if you look at this Drobo where I have a really bad latency, you will get all the additional information you need. Pass this to your storage experts, and unfortunately it's not me here, and then you can look at all the details, and they might advise you to maybe migrate specific virtual machines to other storages or something else. And the cool thing is that we actually keep track of those per hour, which means that if you see a peak every day at 4 o'clock, that means probably some process is running there, automated process that might need to be moved to later on the day or whatever, so that your resources are better scaled. Last but not least, and this I'm going to show you on the VMware side, but we have it on the HyperV side as well, of course. That's our configuration tracking, excuse me, configuration tracking and alert correlation report, where we look at the most changing properties that you do within your environment. And then we're going to correlate that with the number of alerts you have a day. So imagine you change something within your environment and you see suddenly that a lot of alerts are coming. That might mean that you made a mistake in the configuration. And then we'll actually show you what has been changed for a certain amount of time. In my case, I chose a month again. And then, for example, I can show you here what all the parameters are. So you actually get your configuration management database for free through this report. And of course, if you integrate System Center Service Manager together with Operations Manager and you import our management packs into Service Manager as well, you will get the full entire CMDB for free without you needing to do something. And if we look at, for example, one of the things here you see on this data store cluster, if I click on it, then you will see that the 22nd of June we changed it from no value to fully automated, but that was outside of my time frame because it's in gray. But I wanted to see actually what happened the last month of what kind of changes were done the last month. And now you can see here, for example, and yes, we cheated again a bit because of the demo environment, is that there were 3 changes on the system manufacturer, one that fell outside of the time parameter that I gave, but 2 changes actually happened last month from no value to Phoenix Technologies and from Phoenix Technologies to VMware Inc. So somebody made those changes and that might be the reason why suddenly something doesn't work or something like that. And the last report I want to show you is the one we have on host security profile change tracking, and this is VMware only. We don't have this one for HyperV. And again, this is kind of the same thing where we track the configuration of your security, but then really specifically on security. And then you can see, for example, that if you look at here, that we changed the firewall rule Active Directory all within VMware. The left of June, we changed it from no value to disabled. and the 8th of June disabled with all of these ports configured to enabled. So you can track your security changes as well, and this could be something for your compliancy rules, or maybe just because suddenly something doesn't work anymore and you need to know why it doesn't, and it could be that something was hardened on the security level and therefore doesn't work anymore. So a lot of information, a lot of things you can do to maintain and to monitor your environment. All right, let's jump back to the slides because a few announcements, of course, is if you're going to look at the system requirements, it has changed compared to 6.5 because of all of these new dashboards and top widgets with the color code, the top traffic widgets, and the drill through and so on. We now do not support System Center 2007 R2 anymore, but it starts from System Center 2012 SP1 and R2, of course. To manage and monitor HyperV, you need to have 2012 and later, so 2012 and R2. VMware, we start monitoring starting from version 4.x and later. And if you want to monitor and manage it, backup or application, you need to have V7 and later. Very important is if you're only running HyperV and you don't have System Center Virtual Machine Manager, it is not a requirement to do all the things you saw today. However, if you do have it, you can integrate it as well, and you will get additional information specifically for Virtual Machine Manager into your Operations Manager console as well to manage and troubleshoot that. And with that, I'm kind of running out of time, although I'm not doing that bad. So let me already thank you for being here on this webinar, and I'm going to give the word again to Sarah and ask if there are some questions.
Okay, so we have a question from Kevin, who has asked, how is it licensed?
Hi Kevin, good question. So it's licensed on a socket base. So depending on the amount of sockets you have in your virtualized host, you will need to have some licenses. Now more information can certainly be asked by Bytes or by one of our own representatives. However, important to know is it doesn't matter how large your System Center environment is, how many agents you deploy, it is on a processor socket-based license, or even how big and how many virtual machines you're running as well.
So this is from Kevin again. So he's asked, is backup and replication an absolute requirement?
No, this is certainly not a requirement. So you can manage and monitor with the Veeam Management Pack, but if you don't have it, you can easily just monitor HyperV or VMware or the both if you're running a multi-hypervisor environment. So it's a complete separated product as well.
Okay, thanks Mike. So I think that's all the questions we have today. So thank you everyone for joining, and thanks Mike for going through the webinar.